Mr. Maples, we can go ahead and get started. Tell them a little bit about yourself, what your current job is, and do you consider it a job or just a career?
Well, thank you for having me. I spoke, I guess, last year sometime to a class like this, so thank you very much. What I do currently is I'm the managing partner of Buddy's Barbecue in Sevierville. Previously to that, I did a lot of things, as Jason knows, and I worked with him quite a bit when he was at the Mountain Press, the newspaper. So that includes political service on both sides of the fence, elected and appointed. I'm still in development, retail development primarily. And then my family, I grew up in the hotel business. If you're originally from this area like my family is, you're typically in the hospitality business somehow, some way. To answer your question specifically, I don't consider anything I do a job. I've always considered it a career or an opportunity or, you know, a way to advance myself to something new, something else. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I would think a good thing for you guys to think about is Mr. Maples has never had a job. He's just been who he is. And it's worked out so many different ways for him. And we'll talk about those different things as we go. So I guess rather than how long have you done this job or kind of work, you've done so many different things. You'll just take them through kind of your working history. You graduated from high school. What did you do after that?
Attended college. I didn't get comfortable at any of them. I went to UT Knoxville, UT Martin, out in West Tennessee, Walter State, and ETSU, East Tennessee State University. So I traveled around to all the schools, but and from there went to work. My dad was in the commercial construction business, so that's where I really started. And I didn't start in the office. I started digging ditches, okay? And I'm glad I did. I learned a whole lot moving from digging ditches to the office. So was in the construction industry for quite some time. Figured out that really wasn't what I wanted to do, even though I knew a great deal about it, because that's the business my father was in for, goodness, almost 40 years. So from there, I moved on to Dollywood, where I spent about 8 or 9 years. And it was right as Dollywood changed from Silver Dollar City to Dollywood. Don't know if you guys remember that, but it used to be called Silver Dollar City. And then in '86, if I'm not mistaken, it changed to Dollywood. Well, I went to work there and worked in the marketing department again for about 8 or 9 years and learned a ton. Jason's heard me say this. I hope you don't mind me calling you Jason in front of them, but that's how I know him, building relationships. But anyway, a lot of what I use in my life today, be it my personal life, definitely business life, I learned at Dollywood. It's a great company to work for. But anyway, from Dollywood, I moved on to, got into politics. I went to work at Sevier County for Larry Waters, who was the county mayor, and I was his assistant. So the assistant county mayor for about 8 or 9 years there also. Learned a great deal, worked with a lot of people, loved public service, and really enjoyed working with people and the helping people. The part I didn't like was dealing with the politics. To me, that's just a bunch of red tape and burden that you don't need to deal with. I wanted to cut through all that and do my job, but learned quickly that's not how the political life works. So when I got to a point where I felt like I wasn't being as useful in that position as I could, I went back to work for family, primarily because that's what I wanted to do ultimately. But my father got sick and I needed to help him in the hotel business. So stayed in the hotel business in Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg for, well, actually still in it. So I've been in that for probably 25, 30 years. And then from there moved to Buddy's Barbecue. And I'm sure I've left a few things out, but that kind of gives you the background.
When you said you were assistant county mayor, I'm sure at this age, they're probably unfamiliar with what you do in that capacity.
Sure.
I guess as briefly as you can, what's the county mayor do and the assistant county mayor?
When Jason says briefly, he knows me. You know, I do this too much. So, and if y'all ever need to stop me or ask questions whenever, let me know. But the county mayor basically runs the county on a day-to-day basis. So, you know, he watches over, or she, whatever the case may be, the ambulance service, the The county highway department, even though that has an elected official, we worked with that person, the sheriff's department, all of the departments that provide service government-wise out in the county outside our 4 cities. So, and basically I always smile when I say this, I did the things that the county mayor didn't want to do. That's really true, but my primarily my job was budgeting, doing the accounts payable, paying all the bills, working with personnel, hiring and yes, firing people. That actually does happen in government, not a whole lot, but be that as it may. And then working with the various department heads, making sure the county's running on a smooth basis, just like a city manager or a city mayor might do.
Do you remember kind of what the budget was for Sevier County at that time? Millions and millions. Millions and millions of dollars.
Millions and millions of dollars. I do recall the county budget is made up of 3 parts, and this will give you a little insight. One is general government. Again, that's the operation of the courthouse, the ambulance service, all the departments within the courthouse, if you will, and there's more there than you think. And then the other part is the highway department, roads. What do you think the third one is? What's the county responsible for? You're in it right now. Schools. Which part do you think gets the largest portion of the tax dollars? The general fund, the highway department, or schools? Schools. By far and away, schools gets the most. Yeah.
Yeah, Ms. Husky told us that the school system has around 1,200 employees. If that's the case, if you think on average, teachers probably make on average $60,000 or so, what's $60,000 times 1,200? A whole lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
A whole lot of money.
Yeah.
And that's just for, and of course, there's way more than that. Next question. What do you enjoy most about what you do on a day-to-day basis, Mr. Maples?
And I'll say this about all the positions that I've had. It's working with people. It's the freedom I kind of work for myself to a certain extent, with the exception when I was county mayor with Dollywood. With family, and today I kind of report to myself, which means I've got to get out of bed and go to work if I want to get paid and pay my bills, but be that as it may, I love working with people. I don't know where that came from. My dad was kind of that way. Both sides of my family, again, I grew up in the hospitality industry, taking care of visitors when they came to Pigeon Forge or Gatlinburg. So, you know, absolutely working with people. I love it. It's something, if you think about it, it's different every single day. It's not going in and doing the same thing day in, day out, which to me would be just terribly boring.
Mm-hmm. How you mentioned from your childhood, you guys owned a hotel, that kind of thing. How these guys only know Sevier County the way it is now.
Sure.
How has Sevier County changed just in your lifetime?
Oh my goodness. And I don't care to tell you, I'm 60 years old, so basically from age 15 to 18, when I really started paying attention to things, I grew up in Pigeon Forge. So, you know, this is 40 some odd years ago. Believe it or not, if you've been to Pigeon Forge lately, and you may or may not have been, there was more tobacco fields and cornfields in Pigeon Forge on the Parkway than businesses. And that's a little bit bittersweet to me. I loved riding my bicycle, fishing, doing all the things that maybe some of you guys do, and I have kids other than this, but anyway, I enjoy getting in the outdoors. I love the outdoors. So today, you really can't do that much in Pigeon Forge without in fear of getting run over on your bicycle or whatever the case may be. So I've seen it grow from basically corn and hay fields to what it is today. And when I say bittersweet, what I mean about that is, you know, I love the area. It's been very, very good to my family. It's been very good to a lot of Sevier County families, but I miss those days when you knew everybody in town, and you know, the traffic wasn't backed up all the way into Sevierville. You could pretty much go anywhere you wanted to. So, you know, you got to kind of find the happiness and the balance in that. But, and Gatlinburg typically the same way, and Sevierville's growing in that direction, and so is the community of Seymour. I mean, it's growing by leaps and bounds. A lot of visitors that go to Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, and Sevierville, as y'all probably know, come through Seymour. This right here routes them that way, Chapman Highway. So you've probably been in some of the traffic.
A lot of people who work in those cities live in Seymour as well.
Absolutely.
Just a show of hands, how many of your parents work in Sevierville, Pigeon Forge, or Gatlinburg? Yeah. And then how many in Knoxville? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're what's called a bedroom community. A lot of people live here and work outside this area. How did you decide on your career path of working for yourself? Is it something you decided, or did it just evolve?
No, I knew fairly early on, especially when I left the construction field with my father and went to Dollywood. I knew eventually I wanted to work for myself. Is that scary at that point when I was basically in my early 20s? Yeah, that was scary, thinking, okay, hopefully one day I'm going to have, a family, and how do you provide for them working for yourself? But I knew early on that's what I wanted to do. But again, some of the people that I worked with and for, like my father and Dollywood and things like that, helped kind of build the foundation that made me more comfortable, that gave me the confidence to go out on my own and do my own things. So, and basically since leaving, I guess really the job at Assistant County Mayor, I've kind of been on my own one way or the other ever since. So whether it's the hotels, Buddy's Barbecue, or private retail development, which I still do quite a bit.
What are some of the pros and cons of working for yourself?
I mentioned a while ago, you better get your rear end out of bed, to be blunt, and go to work. Otherwise, you don't get paid. Whether if you're working with somebody else, you might be on salary, or you might have sick days, or all those things. I don't have any of that. Okay, if I don't get out of bed and go to work, I don't get paid. My family don't get fed, and bills don't get paid. And sooner or later, that's going to catch up with you really, really quick. But again, on the flip side of that, yeah, it's a lot of responsibility. On the flip side of that, I'm kind of my own boss. So it's kind of nice being able to say, okay, I'm going to take this week off and go on vacation with a family or whatever. Whereas on the other side of that fence, if you're working for somebody, they may say, no, you're not going to do that. So there's balances. There's pro and con of working for yourself or working with somebody else. And really, it's up to you. I've done both, and I like both. I just like working for myself much, much better.
What skills or education do you think is important for the job you do? And if you went to college or technical school to do this work, or you took things in college that you think apply, talk about that.
All the above. I got my education, again, growing up, working, not to be repetitive, for the folks I did. Also going to school, even though I skipped around to 4 different schools and through high school, I learned a great deal. And I pretty much worked when I was in school too. So at your age, from really about the 7th grade all the way through my senior year until I went off to college, I worked. Not only during the summer when I was out of school, when I would go home that evening, especially like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I would work at a local grocery store. So quick side story, every time I walk into a grocery store now, I was a stock person. If I grab something off the shelf, I'll pull forward the rest of it so it's not back in the counter. So things like that just stay in your head. But be that as it may, the most important thing that I can give you, and I'm sure Jason has, regardless of what age you are right now, you're starting to build relationships in your life that will last you the rest of your life. And you may think that's a little bit silly, but trust me, it's not. The more relationships you build, and there's really 3 types of relationships out there. There's good relationships, there's bad relationships, and there's no relationship. Guess which one of those is the worst? No relationship. You have no clue about the person, or they have no clue about you. Even if you have a bad relationship, to me, that's better than no relationship. If you have a good one, that's a great thing. So building relationships, because those relationships are going to carry you through life. When you need something, when somebody may call you and say, hey, I've got an opening, I know you, I want to hire you because I have a relationship with you and I know the type of person you are, versus not. So does all that make sense? Relationship building.
My wife, who was an 8th grade math teacher, has kids ask her to write letters of recommendation for college. She hasn't had them since 8th grade, but she has she still remembers them, remembers their strengths and weaknesses, and is able to do that. Mr. Maples, he and I met 15 years ago. I'm able to call on him and say, hey, can you come and talk to my class? So those relationships that you make can last, even if you're transient you don't think it's going to be, they do. As far as college, we didn't really talk about college. Were there courses and things you took in college that you felt were critical for what you do now?
Probably my favorite and most helpful courses that I took in college were business law. I love law. I'm not an attorney or a lawyer, but I love it because I deal with it every single day of my life, regardless of what it is. Operating Buddy's Barbecue, for instance, I have to follow the laws of really three governments. Local government, which is Sevierville, Sevier County, state government, and federal government. So the more I know about business law, the more educated I am about how to operate that business and make sure I'm doing it legally. So that was probably my favorite out of all classes, and probably the most helpful.
And you see a lot of businesses that get in trouble that don't know the
Yep.
laws.
You got to pay your taxes. You got to operate legally. You got to stay within health department code in the restaurant business, and really a lot of businesses. So you best know the business operation and the legal end of it.
What's a challenge or obstacle you've had to overcome in your career?
Probably a lot of things, but more working with difficult people. Even though I said earlier I love working with people, and to me it's a challenge working with difficult people and getting them to understand your need or vice versa. So that's probably been the biggest challenge in politics specifically. It was the what I'd mentioned, the red tape of knowing, hey, here's what needs to be done. Here's how we get it done, but you lived in between that way too long, in my opinion. And that was really frustrating, to move that political decision from here to here and go through all the red tape of getting it through committees and eventually city commission, getting county commission, getting the county mayor to sign off of it and put it actually into law. In private business, I can make that happen, I should say our team that we work with can make that happen in days. In politics, it takes weeks and months. And that's really frustrating.
What's advice you would give to someone who's considering a career like yours, either in those kind of fields or just working for yourself?
Make sure you're self-motivated. Make sure it's what you want to do. And then, plain and simple, just get out of bed and show up. You know, there's no saying in the industry, half the battle is showing up. That is so true. If you don't show up, guess what? You ain't in the battle. You're not there. So half the battle is showing up and being there. You may not win that battle, but you lived another day to fight another battle on down the road. So just make sure that you have the self-motivation to work for yourself, and make sure that you commit yourself and you show up and you do your job.
All right. So we have plenty of time for some questions and answers. I'm gonna start it off with something we talked about. I told them that you're in real estate development, commercial real estate development. Talk about that aspect. As we were talking about it, I said I don't really know how the real estate developer makes money. I know how the store makes money that ends up there. I know how the person who owns the land makes money. How does the developer make the money?
Great question. And I love real estate development. It's kind of been a sideline and a hobby of mine, even though it's part of what pays the bills too, for quite some time. The way the developer makes money is I'm local. So I know the most people that live in Sevierville, Sevier County. And for instance, if a developer or a retail person wanted to develop something in Seymour, I know quite a few folks in Seymour. If I don't, through those relationships, I can make phone calls and say, hey, I've got a developer in Knoxville or Nashville who I work with, or a retailer that's contacted me that wants to be in Seymour. Well, my job is purely local. So I put that developer or that retailer together with those locals and try to get the deal done. I work primarily with the landowner, with local government, with zoning, all of those things locally to get the job done. If you think about it, the developers out of Knoxville that I work with, or out of Nashville primarily, they don't know this market. They don't know the people. They don't have the connections. They don't know the Jason Davises. They don't know the local government. The planning commission, I do. So what I get compensated through the developer that I work with or the retailer. They pay me kind of as a real estate person or a local developer. They pay me a fee of what that project is worth. So for instance, if it's a $1 million project, typically I'm going to make about 3% on that $1 million. And that may not sound like a whole lot, but for the work that I do, for you mathematicians in here, that's $30,000 that, you know, I get to stick in my pocket, and of course I pay taxes on it, but so that's how I get compensated. And again, it goes back to what I said earlier, having and building relationships. If I didn't have those relationships, I'm worthless to that developer wanting to bring a Target in, which I'm working with in Sevierville, or the Kroger in Sevierville, or the Hobby Lobby Dick's, to name some of those where Buddy's is in Sevierville. I was kind of the local developer in all three of those projects.
So I was just going to ask if you could talk about a couple of the things you've helped bring in, and that was a good list. So there is a Target coming?
That's coming out of the ground now. It's right beside Publix in Sevierville on Highway 66 as you go in, and you got Kroger right there, and then Hobby Lobby, Dick's, Staples, all of that. That's kind of a retail hotspot at this point. But yes, Target is probably about 3 to 4 months away from opening, maybe a little bit longer, sometime around the 1st of October.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any other projects that have started or gotten approval that maybe not that you work with, but that you know of?
Nothing that I work with on the retail level. I will tell you that I'm working with the same landowner that I worked with on Target. She has some property, Kathy Yett's her name, she won't mind me saying, across the street. She's got more commercial property that I'm working with to bring. Costco is interested in coming to Sevier County. I don't know if y'all been to a Costco store before. Sam's Wholesale in Knoxville, and there's one more called BJ's Wholesale. They're wholesale stores versus retail stores like Target or Walmart. You buy in bulk at those stores. They're interested in coming in to the Sevier County market, so I'm working with them currently.
So, yeah, if there's a restaurant or a business or something that you know of that you love to have in Sevier County, this would be the kind of person you talk to about getting it here. All right, questions. I got my notes to take some notes of who asks good questions. Jace.
What was your favorite job that you ever did?
Great question, and probably currently what I'm doing right now. I tell my wife and kids and the folks I work with at Buddy's and the folks that I work with in development, when I stop having fun is when I'll let you know that, you know, I'm done and I'm kind of going to go into retirement. I'll never retire. I'll piddle and do things, but what I'm doing right now, it gives me the freedom. I go into Buddy's 5 days a week, typically Monday through Friday. I'm there from basically 9 o'clock to 2 o'clock just to make sure the staff is supported and I'm giving them what they need to do their job to take care of folks like you. And then I may leave and go check on the hotels, or I may go work on the Target development, which I'm working on some signage for them today that I've got to pull off by tomorrow, and I'll figure out how to get it done. But I love the freedom of what I'm doing right now. But keep in mind, where I am right now, it took me years to get there. So don't get frustrated. Just build those relationships and keep working. You'll eventually get where you want to be.
Speaking of, some of these guys are in the ballpark of the age for a first job, 14 or so. Mm-hmm. They might not be there yet. Anybody 14 yet? What do you look for at Buddy's? I know you don't necessarily do the hiring. That's probably your right. GM. But what do you guys look for in a first-time employee?
Great question. And we hire starting at 14. Of course, you're limited. Law limits kind of what you can do. And we talked about laws, employment laws a while ago. But and remember, I started probably when I was under 14 at a local grocery store. But be that as it may, openness, somebody who's open, makes great eye contact like you're doing right now. Somebody who says hello, hey, how are you today? You know, somebody who just basically doesn't come in and do this and sit down for an interview. Because if you think about it, customer service is critically important for us in the restaurant business. So if you walk into a restaurant and somebody does this, especially at the register, and waits for you to make the first comment about, may I order something? We'd rather have that person that says, hey, how you doing today? Appreciate you coming in. Welcome to Buddy's. What can I get you? So be outward, be open, make great eye contact. Those are things that we look for. Or really, Jason's correct that our management crew who does the hiring and firing, that's what they look for. He knows me and probably knows what I'm fixing to say, but I watch. I don't do the interviews, but I watch if I'm there, and I'll give the management crew pointers. When that person leaves, I'll say, you know something? That person was openly friendly. They spoke first when they walked in for an interview. They made great eye contact. They were dressed well. They were groomed well. They didn't look like they were asleep. I'll make comments to whoever did the interview. So I love to watch people. I'm a huge people watcher. I learn a great deal by doing that.
Any other questions? Jacob?
Say it again.
There is one.
There's one, I think, I'm trying to remember what development.
Where Blockbuster used to be.
Yes. And there may be another, I'm not real positive. It may not be called GameStop. There's one in Pigeon Forge, and I can't remember the name of it, that's located where the Blue Moose is, and Johnny Carino's, and
that's
Bullfish.
a locally owned place.
That's a locally, okay. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a couple in there, and you'll typically find those, and I'm not overly familiar with them, but you'll typically find those in what we call strip centers, kind of like where Buddy's is located in Sevierville. There's 3 businesses in the same building. That's where you'll find those.
They seem to align with Walmart a lot, I've noticed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Traffic.
Yeah. Other questions? Aiden?
What's a good place to work at when you're 14?
Really, I think do a little self-examination and make sure that first of all, whatever position or whatever job you look at fits with your personality before you turn in an application. Because if you turn in an application to some place that you don't fit or they don't fit you, that's kind of a dead-end street from the start. So a lot of folks at 14 typically start out in fast food, be it Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, Buddy's Barbecue, and those are great places to start out in. They teach you a whole lot. I know more about Chick-fil-A than I do McDonald's. I never worked at a McDonald's, but one of our good friends and business folks in Sevierville, again, relationships, is Terry Rowell, who owns the Chick-fil-A on 66 in front of Publix. So we exchange a lot of ideas with him, and he hires quite a few folks at 14, 15, especially this time of year.
Have any of you guys been to the Buddy's Barbecue in Sevierville? If you've been
Great.
there,
Thank you.
Something that you would notice, I as a lover of food can tell you, that Buddy's Barbecue is probably the best run Buddy's Barbecue I've ever been to. You go in, it's clean, the people are friendly, you get your food fast. There's some other Buddy's Barbecues that don't operate quite at that level. What makes you guys, or what is the cause that makes you, is it just a higher standard, or?
Thank you for the compliment. Yes, to answer your question, not to be boastful, but we try to keep things really, really simple. And there's 19 Buddy's locations. It's still locally owned by the same Buddy Smothers family out of Knoxville. Out of 19 locations, the family, owns 13. We own and operate the one in Sevierville, and we have partners that own and operate 3 in Chattanooga. And then there's one other franchisee that has one in Lenore City and one on Emory Road, which is North Knoxville. So 19, they're all located in East Tennessee. We have a real simple philosophy because I'm simple-minded. You have to keep things really simple for me to understand it. And I'm not doing a sales job, that's true. We do 3 things, and we try to do this on a consistent basis. And it's kind of like your question of what do you look for in a job, or what does a job look for in you? Number 1, we provide good quality food at a fair price and value, okay? And we do that consistently. If the crew's not proud of what that food is, and we make mistakes, we're human, they don't serve it. It goes in the trash. Now, is that food cost and waste? I don't look at it that way. I look at it as serving you a bad meal, which means you may not come back. But if I serve you a good meal, you're going to come back time and time and time again, okay? And that's building your base, building customer loyalty. The other thing you buy other than food when you walk into a restaurant is you buy friendly, efficient service, okay? So we absolutely look at that as a critical part of what we're providing to you. The last thing, and remember, keep it simple, the third thing we provide to you is a safe, clean, comfortable, family setting atmosphere. Okay? So when you walk in or you go through the drive-thru or you order online, whatever, hopefully you'll get all three of those things because you pay for all three of those things. You don't just buy the food, you buy the other two things too.
Something that I've noticed, especially since the pandemic, and I don't know if you guys are not consumers, you're not the one spending your money when you go out to eat, but maybe you've seen your parents do this. There are times we'll go into a restaurant and I'll get a bad vibe and we'll just leave before we even buy anything. And I'm guessing you've probably done that a time or two as well. Things you look for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If I walk into a restaurant, give you a quick story about Dollywood. Remember, I learned a whole lot at Dollywood. If there would have been, and I'm being totally serious, and there wasn't that I saw, if there was a piece of trash between where I parked and walking into this building, you know what I'd done? I'd have picked it up. Because when I was at Dollywood in management, the thing you didn't do on that park is walk by a piece of trash on the ground. You bent over and picked it up, put it in the trash can. If you got caught by another member of management walking by trash multiple times, you didn't have to worry about picking up that trash anymore. You weren't there, okay? And so when I walk into a restaurant or any business and it's just the parking lot's filled with trash, that's my first impression. I'm going, they really don't care, do they? And I may or may not walk in. I may not even walk in if the parking lot and the place just looks disarray. I may just get in the car and say, guys, let's go somewhere else. But if I do walk in and lo and behold, the place is clean, it's friendly, they say, hey, welcome to whomever, thanks for being here. I'm going, this is great, but you might want to clean your parking lot up. So, you notice all of those things. But if I walk in and the place is in disarray and somebody looks at me and goes, hey, how you doing today? Can I help you? And the tables are not cleaned, we're leaving.
Yeah. Yeah, you start thinking if the tables are not clean, maybe the kitchen's not clean, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
All right, somebody else had a question. Go.
How do you come to be the manager of what?
A lot of work and effort. Real quick story, I'll tell you how. You remember I love retail development? Well, the people that own the property where Buddy's is located today, Bill and Carol Yett, and both of them used to be school teachers. They inherited that property through a family farm. Well, we approached them about building Hobby Lobby, Dick's, all that strip. Well, Buddy's, and if you remember, if y'all can, there used to be a movie theater right behind Buddy's, and the Buddy's was a freestanding building by itself. And the Yetts said, we'd love for you to develop this property, but you got to buy Buddy's. I didn't know anything about the restaurant business. I grew up in the hotel business. About the third time she told us, you're not going to develop this property unless you buy Buddy's, we bought it. Had every intention of selling it, to be real honest with you, after we got the development going, but after buying it, fell in love with it. I love the concept. It's, we're not fast food. We serve you fast, and we may look like fast food, but we slow smoke everything on a pit in the back. And it takes about 10 to 12 hours to smoke our pork butts. So we're kind of a unique concept where we cook it like your barbecue's supposed to, slow hickory smoked, but we serve it fast. So to answer your question, I kind of fell into it, to be honest with you. Now, I'm not the day-to-day manager. I'm the managing partner, which, I kind of oversee the overall operation. The day-to-day manager is Travis Russell, who's been with us for about 28 years. And he runs the operation. My job is to give him what he needs to operate the store on a day-to-day basis. Great question.
Next. Go, Caden.
I'm going to let him.
Yeah. Caden first and then Lucas.
What was it like at Dollywood in the 80s?
Loved it. A great place. Great people to work for. The Hershen family, who actually owns Silver Dollar City, Dollywood, and a lot of other things, in a partnership with Dolly Parton in Pigeon Forge at Dollywood, just super good people. I was the area marketing manager. Remember relationships? I grew up in Pigeon Forge, so they hired me to work with all the business community and all the people in Pigeon Forge to build relationships with them in '86 when I went to work there. And it went from Silver Dollar City to Dollywood. But I love that job. The reason I left, another opportunity, but more so they wanted me to travel and potentially relocate and do the same thing at Branson, Missouri. And I told them, I said, guys, I appreciate it. I'm flattered, but I don't know anything about Branson, Missouri. Don't know the people there. How can I go build relationships when I don't even know anybody there? So I parted ways with the company amicably, which means I left on good terms and still love them today, still talk to a lot of them. We do a lot of catering for Dollywood. Buddy's Barbecue does. So that relationships. About a third of what it is today. Very, very small. There wasn't a whole lot there when I first went to work there. So
When I was a kid, they had 3 good rides. Now, there's a dozen or more.
there's a dozen. Yeah.
Lucas.
What was your first vehicle?
It's a great question. It was a hand-me-down from my brother and sister. I've got an older sister and brother, and it was what was it? I want to say it was a 72 Monte Carlo Chevrolet, if you've ever heard of that car model.
Do you know what it had in it?
Engine-wise, I want to say a 350. And I went way too fast in it, I can tell you that.
Campbell.
Good car.
I'm really wanting to get a job over the summer.
Mhm.
Do you have any information that
Absolutely. I'm going to give you guys, when I finish up, a card here that's good for a free sandwich and fry. And on that, I'm going to look and see if it's got our phone number. If it doesn't, I'm going to give it to you and you can write it down. You can call Travis Russell or stop by and see him and ask for an application. Stop by anytime. You got to fill out an application first legally before we can talk to you. And they'll be happy to interview you. Just please don't come between the hours of, say, 11:30 and 2. You know why, right? Because we're slammed busy. So it's a tough time for us to interview you when we're really busy. But anytime before 11, anytime after 2, stop by and fill out an application. We'd love to have you.
Guys, we have time for maybe one more question. Anybody? Anybody had one they were holding on to? All right. I'm going to stop. Oh, Caden, go ahead.
If you're 14, what do you get to do at the barbecue?
Great question. There are some limited things, okay? Primarily, you might work in the dining room or you may work on the line. You can't work around equipment because of, again, laws that we have to know. So we'll tell you this real quick. We start out at $13 an hour, but with tip sharing and profit sharing, you make about $16 an hour.
All right.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, bring your
name
card on
tags.
the way out.